All right, I know we're a small group, but let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. Starting with some introductions. My name is Rich McFall. I'm a business account manager with Nebraska VR, or Vocational Rehabilitation, and current chairperson for the CTC. Court, I'll hand it off to you.
Thanks, Rich. Court Barber, Transportation Planner with MAPA. And I'll pass it to Lindsay.
Lindsay Button, Transportation Planner with MAPA. Now I'll pass to Alicia.
Alicia Johnson, she, her. I am the Civil Rights and Inclusion Director at Metro Transit, and I'll pass it over to Donna.
Donna Montalegre, Senior Services Supervisor for City of Pavilion.
Maybe go Amanda's iPhone.
Hey, it's Amanda with the City of Bellevue, Human Service Office.
Big number to get, the time is 10:30, and because of the bad weather, this facility will be closing in 1.
All right. The iPhone user with no name.
I don't know if that's me, but Court.
Go ahead, Corey.
Yeah. But you may go ahead.
Darn it. Corey Hale, Community Alliance and Technologically Impaired, Business Employer Liaison.
Cindy Petrich, Newcastle Foundation.
All right, so that is everybody. So for one, I want to say thank you for kind of a last minute change. I know the announcement came out yesterday, but as we know with weather, nobody really knows how to predict it. And I'm glad we went on the cautious side of things. So hopefully everybody's in a capacity to be able to participate here. If you're in a position to do so, if you can, turn on your cameras. If not, fully understand. But I know we've got some things to kind of go through on the agenda, starting with Alicia and some of the microtransit pilot project. We do have a new joiner. Not to put anybody on the spot, but Brianna, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Brianna Georgeson with APACE. This is my first meeting, so excited to just learn more from the group.
Thank you so much for being here. And if you have questions along the way, feel free to ask. We get it. It's not always maybe as easy as it's perceived sometimes. I will tell you, it took me a few years before I really was able to put pieces together. So there's no shame in asking questions. And then Carlos, would you mind introducing yourself?
Carlos, Transportation Data Manager over at MAPA.
Thanks, Carlos. With that being said, Court, unless you have any objections, let's kick it over to Alicia.
Yeah, that's fine. And I'm going to stop sharing. And Alicia, if you want to go ahead and give it a try.
Do we have enough people to approve the minutes, or are we not at quorum?
We can't vote virtually.
Oh, right. Never mind.
Mm-hmm. So we will just hold that item until the next meeting.
But thank you, Lindsay, for keeping me in check.
All right. Does it look good?
Yep, it's coming through.
All right. Okay, so I am a regular member of the committee, but I'm also here today to talk about the microtransit pilot program that Metro is preparing to launch. And so I wanted to give folks kind of a high-level overview. There's still a lot that is being determined. We're currently in the contract negotiation stage. Everything is subject to our board of directors approval. So those are things that are just to kind of keep in mind as we talk about these different aspects of the service. Okay, so as a refresher, Metro connects people, places, and opportunities through quality transit services. So that is our mission statement. We currently have several different types of service. We have rapid transit or Orbit, which goes along Dodge. We have our fixed route service. So those are our local routes that are on a fixed route also includes our express routes that operate during peak hours, primarily for commuters. And then we have paratransit or MOBI, which this committee has engaged both with Trip on the fixed route and MOBI to learn more. And so microtransit will be an additional category of service that we are excited to add to complement our other services. So if folks are not familiar with what microtransit is, it is technology-enabled on-demand transit service. And so it looks really different in different cities. It's kind of designed to be responsive to the local needs. It is still a shared ride service within predefined zones. And we'll talk about what those zones are that we're proposing for the pilot. There will be a dynamic routing based on trip requests. So trips might be added or removed from the kind of planned travel when you're requesting a trip or traveling using microtransit. And really the main goal is for it to complement our fixed route service rather than compete with it. So it's supposed to kind of help supplement that service, really working to provide the first mile, last mile connections to our current transit system. All right, just wanted to check the... All right, so some of the basics is that requesting a ride can be done either through an app, which will be provided by the contractor. It will be a contracted service. So we awarded the contract, or our board of directors awarded the contract to VIA last month. So they will be the provider and they'll be managing the service with oversight from Metro. So we'll be working very closely with them. Rides can be requested through the app or by calling a dedicated number to book a ride, similar to our MOBI services right now that call in to schedule their transportation. Both will be available in English and Spanish at minimum. People can pay for their ride through an app or through the same app when they're booking their trip. And we're still working on kind of the final fare media structure and payment options and all of that. But as we determine or make those final decisions, we will consider the needs of those who are unbanked or underbanked as we're kind of making those final determinations. This is a 3-year pilot project, and it is being funded very generously by our philanthropic partners at the Sherwood Foundation, in partnership with several other private foundations as well. So we are not currently using any of our federal or public money, but if the pilot is successful, then we may evaluate adding this permanently to our service options. We're currently exploring a $3 fare, and I'll kind of share what the response to that fare was a little bit later. And again, this is subject to board approval, so no final decisions have been made about what the final fare is going to be. And then the tentative service hours are Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. So again, because it is connected or designed to be connected to our fixed route system, those kind of complement the hours of our local routes. For this group, I thought folks might be interested in a little bit more information than we've presented in other places about the accessibility. So we will have a portion of the fleet that will be wheelchair accessible. And even though the full fleet will not be wheelchair accessible, the contractor is expected to maintain the same level of service quality for people who require a wheelchair accessible vehicle to those who do not. And so that's something that we will be monitoring very closely. The response time needs to be the same. Other aspects of accessing the services will be kind of evaluated throughout the pilot. And then the call center, so there will also be alternatives to voice telephone communications such as relay services or TDD, so that people who require those alternatives to voice telephone communications can book their trip or navigate the service as needed. And then for the mobile app, There will be an option to set user characteristics. The specific characteristics that will be set are still all being worked out or will be worked out in the future. It'll be compliant with the ADA requirements. And then it will also be able to produce audible or haptic alarms for changes to the schedule. So, if maybe a few minutes will be added to your trip because you're going to pick somebody up on the route, then that can be notified, just as an example. So the vehicles, again, are still being, the number of vehicles are being determined, the type of vehicles are still being determined. But one example are kind of the passenger van style. And again, it'll be a mix of those that are wheelchair accessible and those that are not. They will be branded as Metro and co-branded with the contractor. So they will be easily recognizable for folks who are sighted to be able to identify the vehicles quickly. But again, the equivalent service must be maintained, and that is something that we'll be watching closely. So these are the three zones that we are currently proposing. So it'll be the North Omaha zone, the South Omaha zone, and the West Omaha zone. People can travel within the zone end to end on microtransit. If they need to travel to a different zone or travel elsewhere in the city, then they would connect to a fixed route and go from there. We're also exploring ways to transfer to MOBI or paratransit, should that be required. For the North Omaha zone, there's a couple of additional sites that people can go to, and that is really designed as a supplement as well. So from the North Omaha zone, they can request a pickup or drop off at the airport, at the Open Door Mission, or at the 33rd and Dodge Orbit Station. So we wouldn't pick up and drop off between the zone and those locations, but those are additional locations that we wanted to be able to serve. And so I can share more specifics. We also still have this information up on our website. So if you want to look at more of the specific zone boundaries, we can go from there. But I can also answer any questions. So the South Omaha zone was really designed, again, to kind of feed into not only the MCC South Transit Center, but also the Exarban Transit Center. It also includes Bergen Mercy Medical Center.
Thanks, Alicia. And that orange line there in the middle of that slide,
Yes,
that's Orbit, correct?
correct. Yep.
So essentially on that West Omaha zone where Orbit stops, the new zone would be hopefully available.
Yeah, so the southern boundary of the north zone is Cuming Street. And then we can serve 33rd and Dodge if people need to get to Orbit. So I thought we thought it would be good to have a couple of examples. So one of my colleagues put these examples together. So if you're going on a trip and your origin is 60th and Grover and you're traveling to the KROC Center, the app might generate a suggestion that you travel end to end using microtransit only. So your entire trip would be on microtransit. And so that would be most likely the option that is suggested by the app. The app may also suggest other options that include walking or connections to fixed route. It'll just depend on your origin and destination. But along the way, you could also stop and pick up somebody at 50th and F to pick up another rider who may be going to the same area or also to the KROC Center. Example 2, so if you're starting at 52nd and Maple and going to 144th and Blondo, the app might suggest Route 4 to West Roads Transit Center, and then connect with microtransit to continue your destination out to 144th and Blondo. So that's an example of kind of a mixed trip between fixed route and microtransit. And then maybe there's a shared trip that drops off a rider at 132nd and Dodge on your way. All right, so then the last example, there's kind of two possibilities with this one. So if you're going from 33rd and Ames to Epley Airport at 6 a.m. on a Monday, it might recommend that you use Route 16 or Route 106. And so that is our regular route that goes to the airport. It does only travel Monday through Friday during peak hours, but it might suggest, not using microtransit and just using the regular fixed route. Another option would be that if you were traveling on 6 a.m. on a Sunday, Route 106 does not run. So it would recommend that you use microtransit. So that kind of helps supplement some of the gaps in our service, which is one of the goals of microtransit. So we did have several public meetings, and the virtual one is recorded and available on our YouTube page if you'd like to go and watch it. It's a lot of the same information, but it does kind of break down the equity analysis a little bit. So we looked at the zones in terms of population demographics for racial or ethnic minority, stated disability, and low income populations. Just so that we made sure that, it was a fair distribution and access to the new service for marginalized populations. So we had a number of people who participated both in person and online. And we've had additional views of our recording since we last updated the table on March 6th. So the overall sentiment of the public comments was really overwhelmingly supportive. People were very excited about this. They see it as a benefit and as a great way to kind of supplement the current services available. And so we did receive 91 public comments. Some of the major themes were that there's overall support for expanding the public transit network, that it would be helpful for those without access to a vehicle. We did receive a lot of requests to extend the West Zone even further, at least to 180th. So that's something that we'll consider throughout the pilot and again for future updates to the zones. And then also considering later hours, especially on the weekends. Some folks had asked for additional locations to the West Zone, similar to what we offer for the North Zone. Kind of depends on the geographic proximity to the zone. So we're taking all of those under consideration. And then we did ask folks what they thought about a $3 fare. Most people said that it was just right. 28% said it was too much, and there were a handful of people who thought it was too little. And so it seems to be right on. We're still working on exploring how the transfer may work between microtransit and fixed route or to paratransit, and what that impact on the fare structure will be. But again, we'll be attentive to equity concerns or people who are the demographics that we're serving. So the next steps for us is that we're currently working to finalize the contractor service agreement, identifying the launch timeline, and then we are planning to begin service later in 2025. So it'll be launched by the end of this year. All right, that is it. I'm happy to answer any questions or go back to any slides if folks have them.
Maybe I missed this part. Do we have a date for when this should start?
We do not have a launch date set. That will depend on contract finalization and board approval and all of that.
Is there not like we're shooting for 2027 or anything like that? Or
it'll be this year.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
And Alicia, I actually just learned this yesterday, but just for some considerations to that West Zone reference that you made, Somebody was telling me that a driver's test can only be performed for like, if you're driving, out at 170th Street. And was just looking on the DMV that the one on 56th Street does not provide tests at that location. So if somebody was to request their driver's license test, they would need to go out to 170th and Burt. So something to consider.
Yeah, I can absolutely add that to the feedback. Thank you.
Alicia, morning. This is Albert.
Hi, Albert.
Hi. Yeah, this is fantastic. Thank you so much for making this big progress. From the last time we spoke, you talked about this, and it's happening. It's amazing how far it's been done, and it's great. So I know you usually don't leave anyone behind in what you do. So my question is, before it's launched, is there a section of education component in your plan for those populations that's not very good in English to navigate this, and they think this a lot? Is there any plan on that? Thank you.
Yes, yeah, that's a great question. We did write it into our request for proposals that a community education piece is part of the kind of outreach plan. And so our contractors, community engagement and outreach team will work closely with metros. And so we'll get community education out there, offer training sessions, and try to make it the least intimidating as possible in terms of accessing the service.
Thank you.
Any questions for Alicia? All right. I'll just
one more question. Sorry.
go ahead.
Sorry. I was just thinking, if we take into account some of these major employers that, for example, Amazon, 144 in Giles, QPI, where we have a lot of meat packing plant, around 108 in F, areas where maybe some people might need some solutions. So how are we able to map out where, those, if some of those employers can have this running around their area, do they have ability to check on that? Or they just have to type their address and see or something?
Yeah, we can certainly help with that too. So I just went back to the map. And so we had some inquiries about the North Omaha zone and employers up on McKinley Road, like Airlight Plastics, or Plastlite kind of asked about providing service, and this will be a great option for many of their employees. I'm not sure where the meat packing plants are specifically, but I believe they should be close to some of them in the South Zone. But we can also continue to take feedback. It is a pilot, so we'll be actively gathering feedback, looking for ways to improve the service, such as additional locations that might need to be served. So I hope that you will continue to give us feedback and be an active voice in this process.
Yeah. So last question, it's
Mhm.
Sarpy County and Council Bluff included in this?
It is not. So currently our jurisdiction is limited to Douglas County. People with, or municipalities within the state of Nebraska could join the regional authority, and then we would be able to expand transit service to those locations. But it would just depend on what kind of transit service would be best for that area, whether it's fixed route or, limited service, microtransit, whatnot. That would all be kind of part of the planning phase. But the first step would be for the municipalities to vote to join the regional authority. Then our board of directors would vote to accept them, and then we could begin planning that expansion of transit services. Council Bluffs is a little bit different. That would require a change in Iowa state law, as it did for Nebraska, and so it's a little bit more complex. But right now we're continuing to offer contracted service in the areas outside of Douglas County. And so yeah, I know there's other municipalities on here, and so we can talk more. We can have folks reach out to our CEO or our planning department to engage in that conversation.
Thank you so much.
And Alicia, Albert's question kind of makes me think of, like that 144th and Giles area. Yes, there's Amazon, but there's also FedEx and other employers. Knowing that there's something, like with the regional transit authority, I wonder if there's a way for employers to contribute. I mean, because essentially, like, we're trying not to use, public funds on that, or at least on the pilot part. Is it still in the opportunity where you can expand that to employers, or is this kind of more focused on these are the three and we're running from there?
The zones are still being finalized. I will say we wanted to balance what is feasible, and then to make sure that we can run a strong pilot so that it is successful in the long term. That is our hope. And so I can certainly provide that feedback, but I can't say like what is the likelihood that it'll be expanded to those areas.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to say let's go ahead and move forward. Thank you so much, Alicia. I know this is an exciting one. You actually reminded me to go back and watch the live session on the YouTube page. I didn't get to be there before, but now it reminded me that I can go do that, so I will do that. I know we did have a few join the meeting after our introductions. Like Ellie, Lander, and Tammy, if you're able to do some introductions, go ahead.
I can go first. Hi, I'm a Transportation Planner 1 at MAPA. My name is Elle Ward, and thank you very much.
My name is Mark Lander. I'm Transit Director at Southwest Iowa Transit Agency.
Assuming we're having some weather related stuff too. So, and yeah, so Alicia just put in the chat that all of the information from the public meetings, including the links to the recording, are available on their website, and she linked that. So without further ado, let's learn about some 53 stuff, or 5310 stuff. Thanks, Court.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. Basically want to give an update on the proposed transition of kind of like how the 5310 program is run in the region. I'll kind of just give kind of a brief history of what's going on with that. We haven't really talked about it in at least a few months, so I'm going to kind of bring everybody up to speed on where this sits. So just so that everybody has an idea, MAPA has managed 5310 in the region since about 2015. And NDOT raised the idea of kind of switching that role back to them. And it was right around 2018, 2019. And at the time, MAPA, we weren't really thinking about it, but we did raise the topic again in 2021 and started working with NDOT on kind of a transition plan for letting the state take over running more of the program. In 2023, we kind of started developing more of a concrete plan that both NDOT both NDOT and Iowa DOT thought was implementable. It kind of revolved around who was going to be taking on what roles within the program and how the both sides of the river we're going to be taken care of, because we do fund programs in both Iowa and Nebraska. And kind of where we sit today is MAPA feels pretty strongly that this agency can't continue to run the 5310 program. That we kind of need to hand it off, and this is kind of why we started working with NDOT on it. NDOT, I was a few weeks ago, basically after they assessed what they would need to do in order to take over the program, they informed us that service contracts would not be allowed. So right now within the 5310 program, we do both vehicle purchases, which are run through the state DOTs, as well as service contracts to certain agencies. Not every applicant takes advantage of both. Some agencies only do vehicle purchases, some of them only do service contracts, and then some do a little bit of each. But if NDOT should take over the program, it would be vehicles only. But kind of the issue with that is that NDOT is the only agency that's willing to take on the program. And as I said, at MAPA, we don't feel like we can continue to run it as we have over the past, I guess, 9 years or so. I'd be happy to take a few questions at this meeting about this, but I would rather collect any questions that agencies have, and I'll send out more of a notice about this. And I would also like to meet with some of the agencies who are getting service contracts right now to kind of talk about what we're thinking and how this transition would work. But we want to focus the April meeting on this topic. So we weren't really prepared to spend a whole bunch of time on this subject at this meeting, but I did want to announce that this was NDOT's position, and that we kind of want to make sure that there is plenty of time and space for this to be kind of discussed and any concerns brought to light. I'm certain that there are agencies who are going to have a lot of questions about how this will work and what this means for the program. But I guess just kind of right now, if there's any initial questions. So Donna asked whether NDOT will be invited to the next meeting. Yes, I've already invited NDOT, and I also plan to invite Iowa DOT as well, because they were involved in it, although not as heavily. They don't run 5310 in Iowa quite the same way that they do in Nebraska. So it's a little bit less of a state of Iowa issue, but there are Iowa agencies, particularly Council Bluffs, that will need to be in the conversation.
And Court, I'm going to chime in for a second because I just put this in the chat, but and I know I said this in the beginning too, but if you're in a position to do so, please turn on your cameras. I think that is kind of helps bring the in-person feel to the conversation, and I know this is an important one, so if you can, please turn on your cameras.
But this is basically where it stands now. And if you would like to, like I said, I'm going to reach out to all of the agencies who are receiving service contracts. But if you want to reach out to me before that, you're more than welcome to, and I'll be happy to set up kind of one-on-one meetings with those agencies ahead of this meeting or after the April meeting, or but we do want to make sure that the lines of communication are open. And there hasn't been any official decisions yet, but effectively we're kind of between a rock and a hard place, and that's just kind of where we are, and we wanted to make sure that we're having the discussion that's needed.
How are you guys feeling as far as NDOT? And there's been so much turnover there, who to work with, and are they ready to go with something like that? I just feel like everything that we do with them, it seems to be all absolutely new people.
It's a little bit mixed. So they do have some new people, but they do have there is some still a few of their staff members who have been there since I've been at MAPA. But the this is kind of part of that. So when we initially brought this up with NDOT, they didn't seem to think that there was going to be an issue with maintaining the service contracts. We hadn't fully ironed out how that was going to look, whether MAPA was going to continue contracting, but kind of getting reimbursement through the state, or if NDOT would handle the contracting. But now with some of that staff changeover and just kind of where NDOT's transit division sits, they said that they don't think they would be able to handle service contracts at all, regardless of whether it was reimbursement through MAPA or basically they just said that they can handle vehicle purchases and distribution, but beyond that, they wouldn't be able to do anything more, so that the entire program would just become vehicles. But the vehicle delivery process should be simplified if we transition it all to NDOT, and this is one of the advantages of moving the program to NDOT, is that we would be going through their application process, and there'd be more direct connection between all of you recipients of 5310 and NDOT. Right now, they have a lot of trouble with kind of MAPA acting as a middleman and not necessarily knowing who to contact at different agencies. And it just, the way we're doing it now, at the very least, it's cumbersome, more so than it needs to be, and it causes a lot of confusion between all of the agencies.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. If there aren't any other questions immediately, basically I'll wait and gather input from any agencies who want to provide it between now and the April meeting, and then we'll just open it up for a discussion. And like I said, I'm inviting the state DOTs to join us at that meeting so that we can answer any questions that you have.
Oh, I think for one, Donna, having that comment on turnover, we know that's a thing anywhere. So I think that would be a good conversation to take place. And transparency, I don't know what their application looks like, but if it's somehow online or there's a process to the data collection, those kind of things, if they could maybe explain, that way when somebody does go through to do this, that we don't have any hiccups on a learning curve that's more structured, I guess, or no hiccups.
Yeah, and they have said that they're willing to work with MAPA on any potential customizations to the application that we need in order to satisfy the regional considerations, I guess you could say, because we do have a different evaluation process to what the state uses, and it's still the region would still have a voice in how we select projects. It just would be a little bit more limited in how we actually end up spending the funds, because it would be focused on vehicle purchases.
One thing I would like to add to the question for NDOT, and I think we've talked about this before on some other things, but even having them attend the monthly meeting would be ideal, or a secondary component of providing us a written statement, an email, something of status or updates. I know that just being able to come to the meeting sometimes can be a barrier in itself, so I want to add an alternative to that. But I think that having an update would be, that transparency of communication would be hopeful.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yep, I can bring that up with them too.
And if anybody agrees or disagrees with that, I'm just saying that as a communication piece. So
yeah, I think more regular NDOT participation has been a desire of the committee for a while, and it's kind of gone up and down. and it has kind of gone with along with some of their staff turnover. And I think that's a lot of it is they've their new manager. Oh, I can't remember if she's been in the position for more than a year, at least a year. I think at least a year. And it's just taken her a little bit of time to kind of get used to everything and figure out how she wants to run things. And it was basically after she'd kind of gotten used to the position and kind of settled things internally that she started looking at the transition more, and then that's when they made the decision of saying it would have to be vehicles only.
And I'm also just thinking rapport. If there is turnover, give us an opportunity to meet the new person and learn what some of this is for, some of that side. But thank you, Court.
Yep. But that's all I have on this for now.
Are you the primary contact if somebody would have a question between now and a week before? When would be a deadline that you would ask?
I mean, I would say if you've got questions, we could probably take it all the way up to about the Monday before the meeting. I think that should still give us enough time to kind of think them over. I'm not anticipating any questions that are going to require a whole lot of research around. I don't think it'll be that hard. And even if there's new questions in the meeting, I mean, I expect that's going to come up too. I just kind of wanted to get people thinking about it and prepared for it. And I'll give it kind of a timeline. I'll send out an email to CTC members, and then probably also something specific to the recipients about this, and make it very clear kind of what they can ask of me, and just setting out expectations between now and April.
And I put in the chat Monday, April 14th, because we have a meeting on the 16th.
Thank you.
All right. Anything further on this agenda item?
Not for MAPA.
Any other comments on the topic? All right, so our next discussion one has to do with the April 21st transit conference. Whose court is that, you or is that Albert?
I'll start, and then if Albert wants to chime in, I'll let him do so. Just some kind of basic information about the conference. A little bit of info went out about it previously before some of the stuff had actually been settled. The date changed. It was actually going to occur in March, and so anybody who saw that invitation initially know that this is the same conference. It will be put on April 21st. It's developed by some nonprofit organizations and some government organizations statewide. It came from regional issues that were just kind of discovered related to refugee housing. That's kind of what prompted the conversation around public transportation. So it was focused in kind of the issues that were found where refugees housed in the region were having trouble getting around, and it just kind of opened up more and more as they peeled back the layers, saw that this was more than just a refugee issue, that there was a general public transportation issue both in the region and statewide. The intention is to kind of talk about funding, state and local policies, economic development, and just general transportation planning. There was a link to the RSVP page in this meeting's agenda, and I'll probably follow up with a link just in an email after the meeting. Albert, I don't know if you want to add anything about the conference?
And I lost power. And before I did, hopefully my flyer went into the chat.
It did.
Otherwise, I can repost it.
It did.
Yes. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah.
We are going to the last month. It looks like we moved the date, but it might help us weather-wise. Hopefully, by that time, there won't be too much increment weather around April 21st. So, other than that, yes, it's going to be at the Melo Bay Student Center at UNO, free. The conference is free and food will be provided. And we continue to reach out to organizations to do the due diligence to prepare this, raise funds, and finalize the last communication on the content and speed up the registration for the last move. So looking forward to it and extending the invitation always to organizations across Omaha and other cities who show a lot of interest in these initiatives. We saw people from Sarpy County, Council Bluffs, Lincoln, Grand Island, Lexington, Columbus County, Skyler, who really want us to make sure this is open up also to what they are also facing in the rural areas. And we are actively trying to work with the DOT and other experts, the planning agencies to incorporate experts from different areas to answer those questions, and without forgetting the transit system both in Omaha and Lincoln also. So hopefully we can get this together very well and make it a great day. Thank you all.
Thanks, Albert. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's all I had on that, and I think that's really all we had on the agenda. I will say we've got some other meetings coming up. Next CTC is on April 16th. And then later this week is the Transportation Technical Advisory Committee on Friday. Our board meets next Thursday. And then the Regional Planning Advisory Committee will meet on April 4th. I don't think I've got anything else. If does anybody else have any, I guess, any questions about anything or any additional business kind of before we close things off?
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Be safe. If you're already home, stay there. Ultimately, like Court said, he'll be sending out something with some further instruction, and have a good one. Stay warm. Bye.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you.